2026 is a collective 1 year in numerology, a new beginning, a reset, a chance to start doing things in a new way. Ones carry a lot of potential, leadership, creativity, momentum, new identities, and the chance to let something new emerge. But every new beginning has a shadow, and that's the part that I don't want us to skip over. 1 years can have us rushing to define ourselves or acting on something simply because we're tired of not knowing, especially after we've had a 9 year, which is all about unraveling and loss. It can feel really tempting to start something new. And this video isn't going to be about hyping just any new beginning. It's about learning how to start something authentically from a place of truth, not from a place of panic or urgency. Because remember, we're setting the tone for a new 9 year cycle collectively. I've actually put together a 2026 blueprint that integrates astrology, human design, and numerology, and comes with a PDF guide that goes through your year and how to navigate 2026 by your human design type. I'll link it down in the description and in the comment if you're interested in that. Before we get too deep into the 1 year, let's discuss a little bit more about 9 years. 9 years are inherently kind of tough. They're endings, right? This is the last year in the 9 year cycle, beginning with a 1 year in 2017. So I'd like you to think about from 2017 to 2025, what was happening in your life. And in my blueprint, my 2026 blueprint, I'll go through each of the personal years because that's going to give you a different perspective on what beginning was starting in your life regarding what part of your life. But for all of us, this has been a 9 year cycle, 2017 to 2025. This is ending and we're starting a new 9 year cycle. The 9 cards in tarot are the moon and the hermit. The moon is the subconscious, the hermit is going inward. So, as you can tell, this is really not about going out in the world and starting brand new things. Not to say that 9 years are not a good time to start things, but that's not where the focus is. The focus is on the shedding, the letting go, the endings that are happening in order to make rooms for the new beginning. The hermit reminds us that this was a year to go inward, to really understand our inner landscape. And the moon reminds us that it was a great time, and it will always be a great time to look at the subconscious, to try to understand what is happening beneath the surface. What are the dynamics, the patterns that are keeping me stuck in these cycles? There's a lot of grief that comes from this 9 year, a lot of loss. And for a lot of us, we may be feeling like we're in this in between space. So as we begin the 1 year, there can be a desire to really rush ahead. And this is what I want to talk about today. Because as I mentioned, 1 years are amazing for ignition and initiation, but they can also lead to a lot of false confidence or premature action because we're just simply tired of waiting. And the real question with 2026 being a 1 year is not what will 2026 bring, but rather what version of you is ready to ignite in this year. It's about agency and identity, right? And knowing that identity is a huge part of what number one is. My life path number is a one. So I have to think about this a lot. This new year cycle is about taking action from an identity, not just changing the behaviors, because you could do the latter, but also noticing how that might be actually keeping old patterns and identities alive and just overriding them with discipline. And this is one of the things with my inner revolution immersion that I will be discussing in more depth, because I know how hard it can be to change our behaviors and to start acting differently when we are holding on to an old identity. That's why this time period between now specifically and Saturn, Neptune, and Aries in February is really interesting because we're technically in a 1 year numerologically, and yet there is still a dissolution and reinvention process happening at the same time. But listen, once Saturn and Neptune move into Aries, that doesn't mean that that just naturally ends and you just step into a new identity and that's fully formed, right? Identity is fluid. It's not something that we are always the same type of person. We may find certainty and seek certainty in that, but we ultimately know that that's what keeps us stuck when we're holding on to an identity that no longer fits, and it feels like our lives don't even look like our own lives anymore. So I just wanted to name that the 1 year has a lot to do about individuality, uniqueness, authenticity, and identity first before the action. Make sure that whatever comes from your life comes from a place of authenticity. And a lot of us struggle with authenticity in our lives, and it's not really anyone's fault. It's just the conditioning that happens in our day to day that tries to shape us into what society believes will be the most useful or productive part of ourselves. And as we move into 2026, we're entering into a really big shift. And I'll talk about this more in my integrative video, in my blueprint. But it's interesting because in astrology, there's some different aspects happening versus in human design, where this is still kind of a transitional year. Nonetheless, this is a big year, and I think it's going to have a lot more oomph than 2025 in a lot of ways, which can be really great. But how do we ensure that we are moving from a place of authenticity rather from performative confidence or false confidence or impatience in a way? 1 years can also make us feel like we don't really need anybody else. Like we can do this all on our own, right? There's a shadow of selfishness and pride here because one of the tarot cards that rules a 1 year is the sun. The other two being the Wheel of Fortune and Magician. So, in some ways, the 1 year is the magician before the magic arrives, right? It's the initiation, it's the spark. In Hermeticism, this is really what the number one is about. It's not necessarily the actual beginning, but the spark of the beginning. And if we even think about the tarot in a lot of ways, the aces are the spark of inspiration that we can take action on, but they're not really fully formed in a lot of ways. So, having the magician be seen here as the 1 year is a reminder that for us, that we are capable of creating our own reality, not necessarily changing the 3D reality in every single situation, but our perception of it. And our perception is really what creates our reality in the biggest way. And the sun reminds us that we're here to enjoy success, that we're here to have vitality and joy. The shadow of the sun, once again, can be that I am the one who matters most. It is, I am right, right? It can be kind of dogmatic in that way. And the magician can also fall into a sense of pride of I can create whatever I want. And I don't really need anybody else. I don't really need to think about anybody else or anything else, like the earth or the animals or anything other than and yourself. And then on top of that, the Wheel of Fortune reminds us the magic that can happen when we step into our identity, because the Wheel of Fortune is all about cyclical change, right? And we're starting a new 9 year cycle. So, very different archetypes and energies from 2025. We can hold two things at once, right? We can hold being super excited about a 1 year after a year of uncertainty and loss and grief and dissolution, and we can also simultaneously recognize that that may create an impetus for us to rush into something new because we are sick of sitting in uncertainty. People are, maybe you are tired of this sense of ambiguity of like, where is my life leading? And so fast quick fixes may be enticing during this time, and I ask you to really sit with if that is how you want to start this new 9 year cycle, with this new identity. It can almost become like a coping strategy, that I have to act so I don't feel disoriented, or I have to start something new because it's a 1 year. Don't let 2026 become another coping strategy, meaning this new beginning is an act of avoidance rather than engaging authentically with the present moment and coming back to your truth, rather than, like I said, urgency. So I want to ask you this. What patterns and cycles are ending for you in 2025? From 2017 to 2025, what are the top two or three cycles that are that you are dissolving as you step into 2026? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear how you're wanting to move into 2026 as well. Is there an intention? I'll just say that every year I have a word that comes to me and I don't second guess it. It comes and I just say, this is my word for the year. 2025 was a year of devotion, and it felt like I needed to devote myself to something bigger in order to be able to move through the endings that I needed to move through, namely my career, that I was in for 9 years, by the way, as a pharmacist. And the word that is coming up for me in 2026 is thrive. It feels like a lot of us have been surviving in 2025, or maybe even for the last few years, but really 2025 felt like the energy of survive, like survival. And so many of our nervous systems are stuck in survival because of the way that life just is currently in this day and age. We're bombarded in different ways than our ancestors were. And that doesn't make it better or worse, it's just the way it is right now. And knowing that, we can choose something different going into 2026. And that's why my blueprint for 2026 is called Thrive Through 2026, because I believe that this year has the potential to have us move our nervous systems, not just our minds conceptually, but our nervous system and our bodies from a state of survival to a state of thrival. And I think that that's actually really what we are being asked of collectively during this time, because I've said this before and I just want to say it again, that there's a lot of talk about we really need to join forces and start working toward these ideals, because a lot of things in the world are kind of getting crazy, like they're pretty intense. And so there's all this talk about mobilizing and finding community, but we can't do those things if our nervous systems are completely shut down and we're in a state of dissociation or avoidance or fight, right? I think for a 1 year, the fight mechanism may come out, it has a potential to come out more often because there's a fieriness to this, right? Like, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's just something to watch out for, because I do think that in the next couple of years, the most important thing, and I talk about this in my blueprint, there's one human design type that this came up for really strongly, but specific for all of us, really, like, that connection is going to be a huge part of this, and true connection, right? Not like just this love and light and everyone's one, conceptually, like feeling it in our body, because when you feel it in your body, the love feels much more grounded. You respect your own autonomy, and therefore you respect other people's autonomy. And I'll talk about this more, of course, in my blueprint with the integrated video, but also in the astrology video that I'll do about 2026. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. What shadows do you think come with number one? And when you think of those tarot archetypes, the Magician, the Sun, Wheel of Fortune, what comes up for you as the 1 year is coming upon us? I also have my waitlist open right now for the Inner Revolution Immersion. If you're interested in that, that's happening January 17th. Waitlist gets a 48-hour early access to it. It's already about 30% filled up from a previous workshop. And this is really for people who are in the in-between space. So I'll have the waitlist in the link down below as well if you're interested in signing up for the waitlist to get some more information about that. We're in this together, and I'm excited to see what this year brings for us. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.